Jorah Lee is her name. Over the weekend, she went missing, very close to my neighborhood, as a matter of fact. The search was on where was this little girl who was just out in the playground playing. She vanished, disappeared. Well, today, she was discovered. She's no longer alive. She was beaten. She was sexually assaulted. It's my biggest story of the day.
A 7-year-old child was abducted, sexually assaulted, and murdered.
The 7-year-old girl was last seen Friday afternoon on the playground at the River Ridge Apartments.
Doing a search of a dumpster which was removed from the apartment complex where the victim disappeared. She was in the dumpster. It appears from the examination of the agents at the scene that she was severely beaten. We believe that she was sexually assaulted.
Everybody's of interest, nobody's been ruled out. We'll be out here as long as it takes.
Her sister was playing with her, but then she went inside because she was cold, and Jorah Lee was out there by herself.
The murder occurred at the apartment complex.
I want her to come home so bad, and I pray to God that somebody has her and will let her go.
This is going to be a very, very horrendous crime. I am convinced of that after having observed the body. Child death is always a terrible thing, but a child who dies under extreme violence is the absolute worst thing.
This is another tragic, terrifying case that we got to talk about. And again, it's a reminder to all of us. And this is, when we talk about blame for this, okay, and a lot of people will blame a lot of different aspects of this. Remember, there's one person responsible for this, someone who had the audacity to do this to this little girl. All she was doing was playing outside. All she was doing was going inside to get some drinks for her friends. She was doing what little girls and little boys like to do. Play with their friends, and she's not with us tonight. Let me bring in my guests. Joining me tonight, he's in Canton, Georgia, where all this took place. Mike Brooks, HLN law enforcement analyst, is in front of that playground where this little girl, Jorah Lee, was playing. Mike, that's all. She was just out playing, Mike.
Vinny, she was just out playing, and she was so close to her house, just directly across the street, Vinny. You think, oh, you let your little girl out, she's going to be okay at the playground, other people out and about, 5:30 on a Friday. Or what time did she really disappear? We don't know for sure. There's some inconsistencies in this timeline that we've been trying to put together, Vinny. But the fact is, she disappeared, and she was found in a dumpster just right around the corner from where she lives, Vinny. It's just so sad.
Tessa Buckner and Athena Loop join us, two neighbors who also have children. They were there. They saw Jorah Lee just hours before she vanished. Thank you both for joining me. This is tragic, and this is terrifying at the same time. Tessa, let me start with you. You've got a child there as well. You know this little girl. My goodness, just try to explain to us what you're feeling tonight inside that neighborhood.
It's very difficult to know that it happened just a few feet away from our apartment. The fact that if we had stayed out there a little bit longer, it could have been one of ours. It's very difficult. It's hard.
Athena, how would you describe what you're feeling tonight?
Worried, scared. I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and what is to come after this?
This is difficult because this is something all of us as parents, we obviously we all think about it, and we worry about it. We know it's possible, and here it's happening right in your playground. My goodness, what can you tell us, Tessa, about the last time that you saw Jorah Lee? Because she was right there at the playground, right?
Yes, she was outside playing at the same time. Our children were outside playing. We just happened to go in an hour and a half before she got taken. She always plays with Alexis and Nathaniel at the bus stop, or out on the playground. You always see her out there. She was always a happy child. You just wouldn't expect it.
You wouldn't. Mike Brooks, here's the thing I want to point out to folks, and this is where the investigation, I think, would begin in a case like this with an allegation of sexual assault and the murder of this beautiful little girl, is sex offenders in the neighborhood. I want to show folks at home a little map of some of the sex offenders in this immediate neighborhood. And this is a nice place to live, folks, Canton, Georgia. There's the girl's home. You've got one sex offender in an apartment in the same exact apartment complex who was a registered sex offender for statutory rape. We believe the victim in that case may have been a 15-year-old girl. You've got a second sex offender who was a convicted child molester. You've got a third sex offender, sexual battery of a child. You've got a fourth sex offender, enticing a child for indecent purposes. You've got a fifth sex offender, aggravated sodomy. And you've got a sixth sex offender, possession of child pornography. And Mike Brooks, if you're an investigator in this case, this is where you start.
Vinny, you start in the apartment right above hers. She is in apartment 9102. And this guy, the first sex offender you talked about, is in 9202, directly above her. In fact, Vinny, the director of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, Vernon Keenan, I spoke with him just minutes ago before coming on air. And I asked him, I said, hey, is that sex offender that lives right above her, has he been totally cleared? And he said, quote, Vinny, I don't want to get into that. So what does that say? Is this person cleared? Does this person have anything to do? We don't know, but they're going to search every storage unit. There are over 300 units in this complex, Vinny. He believes, the director of GBI believes, Vinny, that the investigation is centered in this complex. They're going to search every single storage facility here. He says so far they haven't had to get any search warrants, but if they have to, they will.
And here's the thing, folks, that map was easy for us to put together because most states have put together maps like that for you that you can search and find out if there's sex offenders, registered sex offenders living in your neighborhood. I want to go back out to two of the neighbors who are in that apartment complex. And Athena, what Mike Brooks is saying tonight is the truth. The investigation, they believe, is centered in your complex. This is where you call home for you and your children. I can't imagine what you must be thinking tonight.
I'm speechless. It's terrifying. I stay at home. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I stay home with my kids, my son. I walk my son to the bus stop every morning. It's dark out. I don't know what to think of it.
Well, Tessa, are the neighbors getting to, and obviously this brought the neighbors together, and my guess is with the playground right there, most of these parents know each other to begin with. But you get a sense that the parents are going to come together at this moment knowing that a killer could be living in the complex. Are you guys going to kind of get together and help each other and look out for each other?
Most definitely. I mean, I always try to watch out for other children, you know, pay attention to what they're doing or who they're with. You know, there's got to be a way where we can get them out. There's no reason why you can keep them away from bus stops and schools, but we can't get them out of an apartment complex. We need to get them out. And that's you know, the children would be safer. There's no guarantee, but at least they would be safer once we knew that they were out and we could keep them out. And I'm sure it's very difficult to do that, but
it is.
Worked on.
It's a challenge. It's an absolute challenge. We're going to have more on this heartbreaking story. A 7-year-old girl, I mean, she's just playing with her friends outside her home, murdered, sexually assaulted.
In the dumpster. It appears from the examination of the agents at the scene that she was severely beaten. We believe that she was sexually assaulted. At this point, we do not have a strong suspect.
No one's been eliminated tonight in the murder of Jorah Lee Rivera, the little 7-year-old girl from Canton, Georgia, sexually assaulted, beaten, murdered, and thrown into a dumpster. I want to show you the family's apartment tonight. You can see a sheet covering one of the windows to their apartment there, and this has to be the darkest day for this family. I mean, how do you recover from this? How do you wake up from this nightmare? how do you go on when your 7-year-old, you know what happened to your 7-year-old daughter? I want to show you the apartment complex where all this took place, and then as you zoom over, you can see from the air the area where the dumpster was emptied today. You see the fire truck there. They took a dumpster from the apartment complex, brought it over to this area over here to go through what was inside there, all that garbage, and inside that dumpster was the body of this beautiful 7-year-old girl. Joining me tonight from Canton, Georgia is Holly Furfer, CNN correspondent from our sister network. Holly, this investigation obviously is going to be focused first, people living very close to this area, people in the apartment complex as well. What do we know about the family and the family situation? The little girl was out there. Her parents were not out there. What do we know?
Well, she actually lived with her mom. She was a single mom. Her dad did not live in Georgia. She had 2 younger siblings, a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. And we understand that they were unsupervised. She was unsupervised at the playground. And we hear from neighbors, this is not the first time that the kids have been by themselves. They often were unsupervised. And as a matter of fact, there were some complaints about the kids always being by themselves. Even the 4-year-old in the playground. It is just across the parking lot from their apartment. But oftentimes she would be there without a babysitter. Over the weekend, the courts took the 2 younger kids, the 4-year-old and the 1-year-old, from the mother, and they remanded them into foster care custody. And the mother was in court today, but she was not, Vinny, given the kids back. So she does not have the kids. She's not at home right now either. Nobody's saying where she is, but the kids are still in the custody of the state.
Michaela Porter also joins us, a neighbor who lives in that complex and has children. Michaela, you have children there. So what are you going to do the next time one of your children says, Mom, I want to go outside and play?
Well, you need to make sure that your children are supervised at all times, especially in a circumstance like this. And it's scary, you know, to live here. We live here mainly because of the security and the gated community, and we never really think it would happen next door to you, you know?
So will you let your children outside by themselves?
No, I never let my children outside by themselves.
Well, I don't. How old are your children, Michaela? How old are they?
I have a 12-week-year-old son, and I have 2 stepchildren that are 5 and 4.
Okay, so 5 and 4 is very obvious, but this has to be absolutely terrifying, Holly, because all indications from investigators are is that they believe the killer may very well be living in that complex.
Yeah, the GBI and the Sheriff's Department wouldn't say exactly, but it's safe to say that they're focusing right now on the apartment complex. And according to neighbors here, it is a safe complex. There's gates out in the front that are closed mostly during the day. They're open in rush hour in the morning as people are going to work from 7 to 9 a.m. And then they're open again from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. But we understand that there's a maintenance worker who sort of monitors the entrance. But the rest of the community is gated. So people living here said they thought it was very safe. But yes, the law enforcement is implying that they are still looking. GBI is still going door to door, talking to folks and searching apartments.
Michaela, what are parents, moms and dads inside that complex talking to each other about tonight? I mean, is there a discussion about, hey, let's kind of band together here and figure out a way to keep our children safe, you know, as a community?
Yes,
is that happening?
They're all looking. Yes, and they're all looking to try to help to find the man who's in our complex that has done this to this little girl, so they don't do it to somebody else that we know anytime soon.
Holly, as this investigation continues, Holly, and we learn more, what has struck you about this neighborhood? And, you know, having been there all day and speaking with the people and seeing the community, it started this morning as the search for this missing girl, and we know where it's ended up. What's the feeling that you are getting from the people of this community?
You know, talking to the residents here, there's shock and a lot of sadness. This afternoon, people were coming with their little children to the playground to lay flowers down at the playground where Jorelys Lee was last seen. And, you know, a lot of people are shocked, and they can't believe it's happening. They're coming out. They're talking to us. They're bringing their kids out. They're walking their dogs around in disbelief because, as I had mentioned, this is a pretty safe community, and a lot of people knew each other. They seem pretty tight-knit. So I think it's going to take a few days before this all resonates and people actually can start to comprehend and dissect what exactly happened here.
Michaela, this is a nice community, Canton, Georgia. You're in a gated community in Canton, Georgia. Yet your sense of security has to be so much different today than it was a week ago. Can you describe for us what's it like when something like this happens right next door?
I never really thought it would happen right next door to my house. Once again, the reason I chose to live here was because of the gated community and the security that we have, and many children and lots of families that are out and about, and the trails that we have and playgrounds that are safe for your kids, and now it just rips all that away. Makes it safe to be at your house with your children.
Michaela, how about the children in the neighborhood? Do they have a sense, and you have a 4- and a 5-year-old, do they have a sense of what has happened here?
Some of the little girls do that play with the child. There's numerous children that play with her every day at the playground that are very sad and have brought animals for the child and have been lighting candles and have been walking out with their moms all day trying to find her.
It's unbelievable. This can happen anywhere, folks, and that's why stories like this are tragic to cover but important to talk about, because it can happen anywhere, any time, and our responsibility as parents is we've got to figure out a way to keep an eye on our children. We don't want to point blame here. There's one person to blame. It's the monster who did that. But this is the world we live in tonight.
Very, very horrendous crime. I am convinced of that after having observed the body. Child death is always a terrible thing, but a child who dies under extreme violence is the absolute worst thing.
7-year-old Jorah Lee Rivera found dead, her body discarded in a dumpster inside the complex where she lives, where she was just playing in the playground. Mike Brooks is with us in Canton, Georgia. Mike, it took a couple days to search this particular dumpster. What do we know about why that search wasn't immediate?
You know, as a former investigator, Vinny, that was one of my main questions. And I know I talked to neighbors here, and they said late last night, there was a flurry of activity. And I asked the director of the GBI, Vernon Keaton, I said, why, what led you all to this dumpster at 12:30 today? And he said, well, it was a routine course of investigation. They check out dumpsters. But I wouldn't get into exactly why. But as a former investigator, Vinny, it sounds to me like maybe the local law enforcement agency here, who initially were investigated, didn't call in the GBI until a couple days later. You know, should they have been here earlier as a former investigator? I say maybe, but again, we can't place blame right now. But something led them that happened in this complex, Vinny, led them to that dumpster last night. They were able to get an area where they could take that compactor. I keep calling it a dumpster, but it's actually a compactor. And let me tell you about that compactor, Vinny, if I got just a second. You have a hopper. You throw all the trash in the hopper. A maintenance person here at the complex has a key to put in and to turn it to activate the compactor to push the trash inside that compactor. How long did that little girl lay in that hopper and then inside that compactor? We do know that there was trash put in after she was placed into that compactor. That's all going to be an important part of this timeline, Vinny, but we don't know for sure right now.
Holly Furfer, CNN correspondent. I want to show the folks at home a photograph that we have of some area behind one of the apartments that was taped off. Also in the picture, we noticed that it looks like the fence is opened up a little bit. What do we know about that area? Do investigators believe that's where the murder took place? And we've also heard about some Coke cans. Do we know anything about that, Holly?
Well, actually, the hole in the fence, we're told, was done after. It was during the search. So they don't believe the hole in the fence happened beforehand. But there were Coke cans that the GBI did take, and they're looking for evidence on those Coke cans. We also understand that there was an empty apartment right near the apartment that Jorah Lee was living in. And now there's a lot of rumors going on. We could not get confirmation, but we did hear there might be evidence in that apartment. They were talking about maybe some blood in a mattress, but nobody would confirm that. But we do know for a fact that there are some empty apartments, and there's right near where she was, and there was that space back there where investigators were looking today as they've been going through all the storage spaces, all the garages, and everything back in the woods looking for anything.
All right, Holly Furfer and Mike Brooks live in Canton tonight. Thank you both so much. Our next